Good evening, golf fans. Welcome back to the FanTeam DFS Golf Show. Joined, as always, on the first tee by Mr. Jack Humphrey and his caddy this evening, Mr. Mark Ferguson. How are we doing, gents?
I have a 8-iron, please, Mark.
I'll give you a 2-iron, shall I?
yeah, please. Then I can have a right go at you after a really
yeah.
bad shot, right? When I'm not rewarded for my shot, as Terrell Hatton would say, I'll snap the club. And,
You're gonna hit that 8-iron 180 into wind, Jack. Yeah.
Standard, mate. Standard.
Absolutely.
Has there
ever been a caddy who made more money than his professional?
I don't know about that, but I bet Steve. I bet Stevie Williams. I bet Stevie Williams made a bit being Tigers caddy.
You did.
Yeah,
absolutely, you did. Welcome back, everyone, to the FanTeam DFS Golf Show. How did we do this past week, fellas? Not great for me.
Not great for me either. I kind of went full fade. I did have John Rahm in one team, but I kind of went full fade on John Rahm. Still, I've kind of mentioned that to a few people this week already, that I'd still do that most of the time, sort of 95% of the time when I'm building DFS lines. I'd go against the grain. He played well. He led from wire to wire, didn't he? And sometimes you just have to take your cake, eat your cake, and whatever. But it is what it is. So it's just one of them weeks. That's all it was. And I managed to hit Aaron Wise and Cameron Champ on an each way bet, so nice. Not all was lost.
I was the same. I actually put it out there on Twitter as well, Jack, that I'd mainly faded John Rahm in almost all my lineups. I think the only ones I had him in was the ones that we built on the show. Actually, we did have a cashing team, which I think was the third team that we built. And it was the one where there was a couple of risk picks in there, but it was a lineup that had sort of high ceiling, but low floor as well, which, sometimes those are the lineups that you build that will get you the cash. So, Mark, how did you do?
Well, I basically played all those lineups, and you're right. One of those lineups came in 42nd. I think I did a couple of different captain variations on it. So I didn't actually play any of my own lineups on the main events because I didn't really have time to build them. So yeah, the lesson of this is just watch his pod, copy our lineups, play them. What more would you need to do?
Great words of wisdom there for Mark.
Surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. The thing is that we build these lineups because we put the research in beforehand, and we discuss the players we like, and we pick the players we like, and we have had cashing weeks, and last week was no different. We put a lineup in that I didn't enter it in the main one myself, but I've no doubt if I did, it probably would have cashed quite nicely in that, because I think it was a top 50 lineup in the mini, and you tend to get obviously less entries in the main one anyway. So
until Cameron Champ started fading away, it had a real chance to go sort of top 15, and then just went wrong for him, didn't it?
Sorry. I was going to say, just with like process and things like that. I am right in saying that all three of us would have done that do that every week anyway. Try and just fade the big chalk like that, John Rahm. And I mean, was he like 40% owned or something?
Yeah, something like that.
It was absolutely crazy.
It's 100%, especially in golf, which is such a high variance sport. It's 100% the right decision. Didn't work out this time, but as you do it over the long term, it will definitely work out for the money. I think out of three of us, I'm probably the person who generally does that the most. I would suggest being the most different lineups, and it's just so. I don't know if people really understand quite how hard it is for whatever he was, a 3 or 4 to 1 winner in golf.
Yeah, I mean, if you back that,
you're going to lose.
What are you doing? What are you doing backing that? So
statistically, it just makes no sense to back him, and it makes either. You kind of go two ways with it. You either fade it or you go 100% of him, and you never go 100% of any one player in DFS.
Yeah,
too much variance. So it was the right decision. The result didn't go the way that we hoped, but we did do well with our Tony Finau pick on the season logs, didn't we?
Yeah, just there was a cut sweat, wasn't there, on
Yeah.
the last day? Jesus Christ! I think he made that putt off the green. Oh, no, it was just he must have been about 30 foot away from the hole, and like he wasn't making any putt all day, and then he just nailed this putt for like eagle. And I'm here sitting there in my front room. I've just jumped up. My partner's like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" Like, he's gonna make the cut.
I think was there a more typical Tony Finau tournament though, from like day one where he was absolutely nowhere near, and throughout the whole thing was nowhere close to the top of the leaderboard, and somehow plucks out a second place finish with that last day that he had. Did he like tie the course record or something like that?
It's crazy. I suppose. I mean, looking at it now, the top two players in the field come 1-2, didn't they? I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But
how rare is that? Again, we're talking about process and stuff, Jack. It's so rare that happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like we're saying with the fade in the Rahm, like a lot of the time, them guys that are real sort of heavy chalk miss the cut. So, like,
it will happen this week.
Correct process, and Rory McIlroy, we'll get onto it later, is going to be very highly owned this week, and for good reason. But I will probably go with the same. Well, I know I will go with the same tactic again this week, and we'll see what happens.
Just a quick thing on that. The reason we're saying, just for people who maybe aren't so experienced, the reason you're saying about fading Jon Rahm was only because his ownership was so high. If he was like 15% or 10% owned, you would definitely have been playing him.
Yeah. And we multi-enter, as the three of us will multi-enter. If you're playing a single lineup, then playing Jon Rahm's probably not a bad thing. Probably don't think you're ever going to take down like the main event if you play someone like that, playing a single lineup, but you're probably going to cash a lot of the time. So if you're playing a single lineup, then it is what it is. But with us multi-entering, the process that we deployed was the correct process. It just didn't work out for us this week, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the thing is, we always talk about this, but like we try not to have the chalk, but some chalk is good chalk to eat. But the thing is, you've got to sort of pick your battles with that, I suppose, because, and this is going a little bit off topic here, but just as an example for anyone that plays MLB on FanTeam, Corbin Burns was dirt cheap a few days back. He should have been priced top 5, and he wasn't. And he goes out something like 50-60% owned and goes and absolutely smashes it. Sometimes you can have that kind of chalk because the budget was there for it as well. But Jon Rahm frequently comes out at the top of the price board on these contests, and last week exactly the same. And you know what, if you picked him and you captained him in your lineups and you won some cash, then fair enough, but there's going to be a lot of weeks where that won't happen as well. So, and it's for those reasons that we tend to fade players like that and try and get a bit more unique with our lineup construction.
You make a great point there, actually, Nick, because what we're not saying is you pick 6 players in your golf lineup who aren't highly owned. You only have to do 1 or 2 to be different enough. Yeah. The field sizes aren't large enough that you need to be that different. So it's a lot easier to beat to get a jump on the field by the 40% guy failing and you not having him, especially when he's the most expensive, because that means the quality of the golfers of it. So it's almost like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And with your Corbin Burns example, again, the path of least resistance was to spend the money elsewhere and get different elsewhere, but just have him in as a key piece. So each slate's different. Depends on price, depends on ownership.
You can tell we listened at school, can't you, Nick? Out the three of us there, like that was
very elegantly.
Yeah, it was very elegantly put, Mark. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was just one of them where you had to sit back and listen to it. In fact, when this show's finished, I think I might actually just go and sit back and listen to that again. I might even play it for the missus. And just Rita, why not?
Yeah, motivational speech.
My course is coming out tomorrow. $99.
Super. Oh, it could only come from you, that kind of speak, Mark. No, very well put. We have got some work to do, fellas, because we regressed slightly in the season long last week. Not massively, but we have lost a little bit of ground. So I think we started the week around 210, and I think we have dropped down to somewhere around 230, 240-ish. So it's not a huge drop. Some disappointing performances. Very glad that we didn't captain Austin Smotherman in the end.
Made the cut.
He did make the cut. But the least said about that, the better, I think. So we've actually managed to fluke our way. Well, I say fluke. We have planned with this team, but we fluked our way into 6 playing players this week. So we've got Tony Finau, Webb Simpson, Gary Woodland, Rory McIlroy, Ryan Armour, and that man again, Austin Smotherman, with no one playing on the bench. So the question, guys, I suppose we've got a major just around the corner. We know some confirms for next week. Are we rolling the transfer this week, or are we happy with the 6 that we've got out there?
We've had some questions on this as well. Like someone asked my thoughts on Matt Kucha, for example. I'm not saying that I don't want to use Matt Kucha in this team anyway, but Matt Kucha is actually confirmed for the next 4 events. Luckily, just before that Mexico Open kicked off last week, we had a load of fields sort of half confirmed, 3/4 firmed. So the Byron Nelson's got a load confirmed now. If you go on the tracker, it is pinned. Nick, if you scroll up, sorry. It's pinned there, as you can see in the middle in that orange bar. That is where the tracker can be found. Just go there. But yeah, we had a load confirmed for the Byron Nelson, load confirmed for the Charles Schwab. We've had most of the PGA field for a while now as well. I think Matt Kuchar is going to be very popular for good reason. He plays the next 4 events. I don't really want to bring him in. I think he can. He's one of them golfers that I now believe can only play on certain golf courses. A bit like Tiger. Not to that extent, but I don't think his game's suited for a lot of these golf courses coming up. Like, for instance, this week, this golf course is a very challenging golf course. You need to be very, very accurate off the tee and decent off the tee, for example. So I'm dead against it. So that's kind of, I don't know what your 2's thoughts are on Matt Kuchar, but that's kind of my thoughts with him. I don't think he'll play the PGA very well either. PGA Championship tends to set up really hard and long. I just don't think that suits his style of game. But do you 2 have any thoughts on Matt Kuchar?
I don't see the need. If it'd be a great choice if we had to bring somebody in, but one thing I've learned this during the season long is if you don't need to use a transfer, don't do it, because it went horribly wrong for me a couple of weeks ago, and it's really impacted on my team.
Went wrong for me as well.
Yeah, I already had a 6, and I thought I'd bring in a 7th that week, and then last week I've ended up with only 3 playing, and there could have been 4 in a very high scoring event. So I think because we've got 6 playing, personally, I would go with them. There's a couple of plays I really like on there as well as the obvious. So which we'll talk about when we talk about the actual this week's DFS tournament. But yeah, for me, I think we just leave it and roll the transfer.
Nick, Nick, I think I agree with Mark. We leave it, but do you have any thoughts on Matt Kuchar going forward? Would you want to bring him in? Do you think there's a lot of other golfers that are playing the next 3 events, for example, that I prefer much more compared to Matt Kuchar?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, to be fair. And I've just had a look then. I didn't realise he was actually priced at 9.2, which feels a little bit too high as well, given some of the value that you can get around the sort of 8 to 8.5 range. Hello from Norway there in the comments. Hello friend from Norway. That's I think that's as far as we've gone globally thus far. Fantastic.
We're international.
Yeah, made it.
Hey, Kevin, next week there's Eurovision DFS on FanTeam.
Oh, you had to get the Eurovision in, Mark, didn't you? You had to. I expect a show from you for that. But no, coming
Jack's
back to
definitely not going to be on it. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely not. No, coming back to Kucha, not for me.
By the way, I do have a play I like for if you want to bring somebody in. Chad Ramey's playing the next 4 weeks.
Yes, he's someone. Yeah,
and he's been very good.
Yeah, he's someone I've got my eye on. Chad Ramey. There's a couple of others there. I mean, we are not doing this one. I know that, but Luke List plays the next 3 events. Woo Kim, where's the soundbite? It's gone. We've lost it already. He
that's
plays
gone.
the next 3 events. Both them to list and see we were 9.5 million. I think my favourite play, I mentioned it before we come on, is Seamus Power, plays the next 3 events.
Yeah, I think what I would be inclined to say is if you're considering bringing in someone like a Kucha, I would just say just consider the state of your team, really, because I mean, we had. Did we end up with 5 playing last week? I think we had. You know, if you're in a position again this week where you've got 4 or 5 playing, I think you're probably okay. Like Jack said, it's a difficult course, this one. I would be looking ahead now towards we've got the PGA coming up. I'd be looking ahead to that, in all honesty. And I would be more inclined to, if I'm bringing someone in, I'd be bringing someone in who I'd want for that event that's likely to play either this week or the weeks coming up. So yeah, Kucha for me is just known. I do feel he's priced a little bit too high. I mean, we brought Woodland in last week at 9.6. We've got Lowry there on our bench at 9.6. 9.2 just feels too much.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think we're rolling this week, guys, and I'm quite happy, to be fair, that we've got Tony Finau, McIlroy, Webb Simpson, and Gary Woodland. I'd say that's 4 players from the slate that are sort of towards the higher end of this slate anyway. But who are we going to go with captain-wise?
It's Rory for me. I think we captain Rory.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think
he's got less ownership than Finau, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah, I was just he's got less ownership than Finau. I was just impressed from what I saw from him. I know it was the last day of the Masters, and that is the last time we've seen him. But I was impressed with what he put together. It kind of made me believe that he can win tournaments and majors again, as I mentioned, I think on the RBC Heritage pod that we've done. So, yeah, I like Rory. I think Rory's the captain. And like you say, Mark, Finau's probably going to be a bit higher owned just because we knew he was playing the Mexico and this tournament. And maybe people can't afford Rory this week, for example. So, yeah, I think Rory's the option for us here.
Yeah, I think if we're following the John Ram, maybe fade the top players in the actual the contest that we're going to be covering this week, then I suppose we're sort of covering bases by going captain Rory in the season long. So if Rory goes off this week again, like Ram did last week, then you're not going to be too disappointed if you don't own him in your lineups because you're going to benefit from him in season long anyway. So yeah, but I'm happy to go with that as well.
Do not make any changes, as we say, until Thursday. We say it every week.
And people still ignore it.
They do.
Indeed, they do. Indeed, they do. Before we move on to this week's tournament, Jack, I don't know if you just want to let the listeners know about the fantastic offer that we have at FanTeam for Fantasy National.
Yes, so all the stats that we will be using in tonight's podcast, some of the stats we've already used, etc. We find them all over at Fantasy National, so you can go over there at fantasynational.com/FanTeam and you get 20% off any of their packages. You can do a weekly, a monthly, a yearly one. It's a fantastic website and there's no other place like it for golf stats. So yeah, head on over there. We will be using the stats tonight, as I say.
Good stuff. Right, well, on to the main event then this week, fellas. So we have the Wells Fargo Championship, which is a little bit different this year. I will not steal Jack's thunder on this, but normally people that follow golf will be familiar that this is normally at Quail Hollow, which I believe that is going to be the President's Cup this year, Jack.
Yes.
So this year we head to what was previously the course that was used at the Quicken Loans. I think the last time was 2018. It is TPC Potomac. Tell the listeners about this course, Jack.
Yeah, so Tpc Potomac is a par 70. It's 7,107 yards long. We have bent grass, fairways, and greens here. There's water in play on 4 of the holes. I read somewhere the bunkers are similar to what you'll find in Scotland, and apparently they're the 5th hardest bunkers on the PGA Tour. So challenging week for the golfers there. Typical. It got redesigned in 2007. This place, $32 million was spent on it. A load of people had a bit of input in it, but the main guys were Tom Fazio and Pete Dye, who had input on the redesign. And typical of Tom Fazio and Pete Dye designs, we get greenside bunkers galore.
Bunkers everywhere.
That's what we're going to get this week. The hardest hole is number 11. It's a par 4, 470 yards long. Gives up about 28.7% of bogeys, that hole. The easiest hole is hole 14, which is also a par 4, but it's only 299 yards long. So I think a lot of the golfers will be trying to get onto that in one this week. But that gives up about 42.3% of birdies. As Nick has mentioned, the Quicken Loans tournament was held here in 2017 and 2018. Carl Stanley ran out the winner in 2017. Francesco Molinari in 2018. Played a bit easier in 2018. So if you're going to use that in your models, just be careful. It was a lot softer, I believe, that year. Typically, the score around here, on average, I know Molinari, I think he was about 13 under when he won it, but Carl Stanley won it at 7 under. Typically, that is the normal score around this. So you're going to get that cut mark around 2 over this week. We're going to go back to a sort of a normal golfing event, as they say. Comp courses, a couple here. So Sedgefield and Colonial comp well to this golf course. If you want to put that within your model, you can. But yeah, that is pretty much it. The one thing I have heard from a lot of the stuff I've read and listened to this week is patience. The golfers have to be patient around here. It may seem very short at 7,107 yards long, but it plays very difficult.
Chalk Tyrrell Hatton straight off the list, then I think that is the key.
Petulant child.
Yeah. Mark, your course key stats for the week?
For me, in order of importance, got driving accuracy, greens and regulation. I've kind of created my own little strokes gained total this week, and in par 4 scoring.
You've created your own little strokes gained total.
I just haven't used the strokes gained total. I've just split it up, and you can generally use the sort of generic strokes gained total, but I've given more weight to approach.
Oh, we are definitely going to have different models this week. This will be fun.
We are. So we've had new strokes gained coastally on the show this year, and now we've got strokes gained Mark Ferguson. Jack, tell me how your model differs. What is it that you're looking at?
So I'm looking at strokes gained off the tee. That's my highest priority. I've put that up to 32% within my model. Don't mind giving people these details. So if you have got Fantasy National, you can use my model if you want. Strokes gained on approach, I've got up at 25%. Strokes gained around the green, that's quite important, I've found. With previous winners of the Quicken Loans, they all rank in the top 10 of this category. I've got that at 20%. Strokes gained putting, I know that's a bit hit and miss sometimes, but I've got that up at 10%. And I've got bogey avoidance at 13% on my model this week.
I've got a couple of different things as well myself, but similarities. I think mine's probably closer to yours, Jack, than to what Mark's got on his. But yeah, I've got strokes gained off the tee as my key one. Fairways gained as well, because this is a course that is not very forgiving if you don't find the fairways. You want to be on the fairways, so that's a stat I'm building in this week. A lot of what I noticed is a lot of the par 4s. Sort of like the scoring par 4s are sort of 450 to 500, even though it's not a really long course. Some of the par 4s are a little bit longer. So I've thrown that in as well, because when I've looked at people that have previously done well at Tpc Potomac, the sort of 450 to 500 strokes gained par 4s bracket has been one of the higher over the week in terms of sort of keys to victory. So thrown that in. I've also thrown in greens in regulations gained, because the greens are quite small here, which brings into, like you've just said, Jack, we don't normally have putting within our models, because it is a variable stat, there is high variance in putting from one week to the next. But I think because the greens are a little bit smaller, it will alleviate some of those 3 puts. So I've thrown in a little bit of strokes gained on the putting as well. And as is the case every week, I have got approach in there because approach is important on every course. These are every single course. There is going to be second shots there. So that's where the approach comes in, especially on this one, given that it's not a super long one. So
can I just, before we move on, I just saw something about the weather. Apparently the weather's going to be horrid on Friday and Saturday. So watch out, especially if you're playing the single daily showdowns, just watch out for the weather for your tee times. Maybe build it on the morning PM split or something like that if you want to do something like that. I don't know. Just look at it, look out for it. Sorry. It's meant to be horrid Friday and Saturday. So yeah.
Just something to point out as well, the actual main tournament itself has the 2 entry levels. So there's the €2 and the €12. Or if you're listening or watching from over in good old UK, that equates to £1.68 and £10.08. But there is also the €4 satellite, which is there's one that's running for the full event with 75 seats guaranteed for a ticket to the PGA Championship Monster. And then there will be, I don't know if the satellites every day, Jack, you might know a little bit more on that, but there certainly is a day 2 satellite with 20 seats guaranteed. So a good way of getting into the Monster contest in a couple of weeks' time.
And you've got the profit leaderboard as well.
Yes, and that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, it's well worth getting involved. If you've never played, it's good fun.
Absolutely. Let's start building some lineups, fellas. So Rory McIlroy is the top of the slate here at 23.4. Unsurprising, really. And then we have Tony Finau at 21.4. Abe Answer at 21. We've got Corey Connors at 20.4 and Matthew Fitzpatrick at 20.2. Kick us off, Jack, with your pick of the top 5.
I mean, it's going to be chalk, but it's Rory, isn't it? Like, I mean, I know we've said that we're not playing him much within our builds. I will certainly have a little bit of exposure. It won't be a lot, but he ranks number 2 in my model this week. He's 6th in strokes gained off the tee in this field. This is all over the last 24 rounds. He's 4th in strokes gained around the green. Bogey avoidance, he's 4th as well. He's going to be chalk, but we have mentioned that sometimes chalk can be good. I think that's the case. And out of this top lot, maybe, I mean, I certainly have a bit of interest in Matthew Fitzpatrick as well. He's 8th within my model. He's actually 1st in bogey avoidance over the last 24 rounds. So you like to see that. Outside of within my top 4, I think they're my favourites. I do have Corey Connors ranked 4th, but he's 91st in putting in this field as well. So yeah, I think I would go Rory, Matthew Fitzpatrick and Corey Connors, and I don't really have any interest in Tony Finau or Abraham Answer.
Mark?
I'm not really. I don't think I'm playing any Rory this week, personally. But I do like Connors and Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick last time out, he missed the cut of the Heritage. He had his 2nd worst ever putting performance, which is not going to happen again. He's 6th in my course suitability model. He's 15th in my model. Corey Connors actually is my number 1 player in my model. He's 4th in weighted ball striking over the last 16 rounds, and he's also 5th in my course suitability model as well. So he's my overall sort of statistically my best pick. But I'm thinking Fitzpatrick might be lower owned, that's why I'm sort of I'd probably be slightly overweight on him.
Yeah, I think Corey Connors comes out quite high in mine as well. I think he's 6th in my model, Corey Connors. Now, granted, I have looked just at the last 12 rounds of golf rather than 24. I have just narrowed it down a little bit this week because I think now that we're seeing a lot more golf, it's not the start of the season. I think you can take into account a lot more recent form. And he has been fantastic recently. I've actually just looked, and the last time he lost strokes off the tee was at the Genesis back in February of last year. And it was very marginal. He's not lost strokes off the tee since then, and he missed the cut at that event. And he's only had a handful of missed cuts ever since. So Corey Connors he's had some fantastic finishes this year anyway. He was 6th at the Masters. He was 11th at Arnold Palmer. He's 7 out of 10 cuts as well. So his cut making's been pretty good this year. Can be very up and down with the putter, but I'm banking on the fact that with these smaller greens, hopefully his putting won't matter quite as much as it has in other events. But yeah, Corey Connors is probably my pick of the bunch of the top fellas this week. For some reason, I like Rory as well, Jack, and he is number 1 in strokes gained off the tee in the last 12 rounds, but he's ranked 15th in my model, and I think it's his approach play that's dragging him down a little bit there, but it's not as important this week as it has been in previous weeks for me. I don't think that. So I'll definitely have exposure there, absolutely. And likewise with Matthew Fitzpatrick as well. Again, it's his putting that drags him down in my model, but I think, again, with these smaller greens, sort of, I think with Fitzpatrick, you've got to sort of take rough and smooth with him. The putting's probably one of the worst parts of his game in terms of like his consistency. So if you get in a decent week from him, then you're gonna have potentially a high ceiling. So yeah, I think with these smaller greens, I think this week putting stats will be. I think that's why we can take it into account a little bit more this week than we have done in previous weeks, shall we say. Moving down the list then, we'll chalk Tyrrell Hatton off straight away because patience is certainly not a virtue with him. Keegan Bradley, Mark Leishman, Russell Henley, Gary Woodland, Patrick Reed, Paul Casey, Sergio Garcia, who's been very, very disappointing this season so far, Max Homer, Si Woo Kim, and the sound effect I still do not have up on my phone. What a disappointment. We will bring that back next week, I promise. Seamus Power and Webb Simpson to round off page 1. Coming back to you then, Jack. So the rest of page 1, who are you liking?
Actually, like a few guys down the bottom here. I'm probably going to start a lot of my builds from here. So I like Gary Woodland. He's actually third in my model. If you go back and look at his history, he played. This is not a comp course by any means, but the Honda's a very tight golf course, not particularly long. It's going to be. I can see it setting up similar to what we're going to get this week. He actually come 5th there, Gary Woodland. He's 3rd in strokes gained on approach within this field over the last 24 rounds. Disappointingly, this is somewhere where I thought he would excel. He's actually 52nd off the tee. And he's normally pretty good off the tee. That's one part of his game he's really good at normally. But yeah, strokes gained around the green, he's 16th. Bogey avoidance, he's number 2 within my field as well, within this field over the last 24 rounds. So yeah, Gary Woodland's probably my favourite play up there. I do like Keegan Bradley again. Keegan Bradley, we all know what the issue is. It's the putting, but he ranks 5th within my model this week. He's just sort of solid all round, except the putting. So we need to get, if we get that putting performance out of Keegan Bradley, we could see a win. Really, like that's what could happen here. So yeah, I like Keegan Bradley this week, and I also like Max Homer. He's 11th within my model. Been playing a bit better recently as well. The only one knock on Max Homer with his stats at the minute is his strokes gained around the green. He's 107th in this field over the last 24 rounds. So you don't like to see that, but he's a consistent cut maker. And before the Masters, he had 4 top 15 performances. So yeah, I like he made the cut of the Masters as well. So there's no shame in that either. I don't mind getting to Max Homer. I think a lot of my builds are going to come from around here. And Si Woo Kim is down there as well. What is he in my model? He's 13th within my model this week as well. Strokes gained off the tee, he's 7th. Kind of know what we're going to get with Si Woo Kim. He's probably one of them that you want to chuck in a build which could boom or bust kind of a lineup which could boom or bust kind of thing. So that's what I would probably do with him. But yeah, they're the guys I like on page one and probably where a lot of my builds are going to come from.
Siwoo Kim, a consistent cut maker as well, 9 out of 10 cuts.
Yeah.
Impressive stuff. Mark?
Jack has kind of stolen all my players, which is quite interesting. We've all got such different models. Max Homer's my favourite though. There, I think. Actually, Paul Casey comes out pretty high in my model as well. He's in top 10 on my model. Keegan Bradley's been so consistent recently. I can't remember the last time he missed a cut. He used to be so good. He used to be like Luke List. He used to be really boom or bust.
Yeah.
I think. Like you say, Jag, I'll be starting a lot of builds down there. I'll try and get as many of those in there. That group out of Bradley, Woodland, Casey, and Homer. For me, I would take, actually, Kim and Power rank pretty well as well in my model. So we're kind of.
It's a nice area, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very nice. It's just a shame it's not top of the next page because then you could just build a complete lineup out of them. But that's good job by the pricing guys in that respect. Yeah,
I don't mind Power either. Just before we move on, like he's 22nd within my model. He seems to have refound that form that we saw in the full season last year, which has been nice. I mean, he started the season off well, 3rd at the Sony Open, come 9th at Pebble Beach, 14th at the American Express, but then he went on a run of 3 missed cuts. Obviously, got on the right side of the draw at the Players, made the cut there, and he made the Masters cut on his debut, which is, there's nothing to say. I know he was only 27th, but there's no shame in that. That's good just to make the cut on your debut at the Masters. So I don't mind Seamus Power. Seems to have refound or rediscovered that form. But he's probably, out of all the guys I mentioned above him, he's probably sort of last within my list out of that.
So that's where we differ because he's actually 5th in my model. So he's the highest ranked out of all of them.
Yeah. Russell Henley's one I've actually got fairly high up on my model, and that's mainly because of his approach play, but he's ranked 13th in fairways gained as well over the last 12 rounds and 21st in greens in regulation. He's another one where his putting is the stat that brings him down a little bit. I think if he was a little bit more consistent of late with his putter, he would probably rank around top 15, top 10 for me. He's just outside that. But his putting's only really sort of let him down over his last couple of events. He missed the cut of the Heritage, but prior to that, he went on a run from sort of like Houston Open back end of last year through to the Players, really, where he had he had a number of top 20 finishes and he was gaining strokes in most events as well with his putter. So it's only really that it's let him down recently. But my only thing with Russell Henley at that price is 18.8. I think I'd be more inclined to probably pay up the 0.6 like you guys have said and go with Keegan Bradley and aim for the ceiling of Keegan Bradley, or pay down and target the likes of Seamus Power and potentially even Paul Casey there. Yeah, I don't know if at 18.8 he just feels slightly overpriced. I think if he was sort of wedged somewhere between Garcia and Reed, I'd probably be all over him this week. But I don't know if it's a little bit too much on the price there. But
Keegan's got to find that putter sooner or later. If he does find it, he can win the tournament.
Yeah. That's the thing about these players with the bad putting stats is they don't even have to be that good. They just need to be average with the putter, and then they're up there.
Look at Matsuyama.
They're all capable.
Yeah,
and they're all capable of it. If you look at their history, they all have these sort of what you think of as like spike events where their putting suddenly goes up, and if you get them on that week, happy days.
Yeah, I heard on. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and there was a good point made, which we talk about it in passing week on week about made cuts, but actually players that consistently make cuts, you can often overlook. And there's a lot of really good cut makers at the bottom of this page one, which you'd expect to see, to be fair. It is page one, but the likes of Russell Henley, who's made 7 out of 8 cuts this year. Keegan Bradley, another 7 out of 8 this year. Siwoo Kim, who we've mentioned 9 out of 10. Do not underestimate that cut making ability, because if you've got a golfer there that's getting you 4 days of golf, then he may not go on and win, but ultimately that is what you want. That is going to get you into the cash. So do not underestimate cut makers, even if they're not your sort of your household top of the board names. Moving on to page 2.
Sorry, quick on that.
No, go on.
I think last week Sean posted on the Discord. Didn't he say it was under 9% of lineups in the main event that had 6 of 6?
Yeah.
So
which, to be fair, it feels like that is the case in most weeks. To be fair, when you look at most weeks, you'll probably find that 4 making the cut tends to be the highest percentage, and then you sort of have 5 and 3 either side that are normally quite even. It's a difficult sport to get 6 out of 6 over the line because, I mean, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of someone not making a cut. It's a tough sport. It's a varied sport in terms of scoring, and often it's the players that you expect to make the cuts are the ones that let you down. But yeah, I think you can get 6 out of 6 over the line. You're laughing. Page 2 starts with Jason Day. I'll work down to Johnny Vegas here. So we've got Jason Day, we've got Matt Kucha, we discussed a little earlier. Aaron Wright.
Played well last week.
Been consistent this year, Aaron Wright has. Yeah. It must be the head covers, the double glove, the head covers. He's doing something.
I can't even say what I want to say with that, but begins with an N.
Absolute psychopath. Cameron Young, Brian Hartman, Kevin Streelman, Doug Gim, Johnny Vegas for the top half of page 2. Mark, I'll come to you first. Top half of page 2. Let me know the names that are jumping out at you.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave that player for you because I know you're going to talk about Kevin Streelman's third in my model up here, so I like him. That wasn't your player, was it, Jack?
No,
good. I know you're going to pick. I actually, again, I quite like a lot of players up here. Vegas is an obvious one. Matt Kucha, we talked about him briefly before. He actually, on my stat model, he comes out pretty good. And feels like this course is probably set up for him. But yeah, I wouldn't want to possibly steal Jack's player.
It is Mr. Cameron Young. Was that who you was on about, Mark?
Yeah.
Yep. He is Cameron Young is number 1 in my model this week. Probably because he's number 1 in the field over the last 24 rounds off the tee, strokes gained off the tee. He's green everywhere else. The approach is it's a very light green. He's not brilliant. He's 32nd within this field over the last 24 rounds, but I like what I've seen from Cameron Young. He's missed 3 cuts all year. He started the season at the Sony Open. He missed a cut there. That's fine. At the start of the season, you're warming up. He then went on a run of 6 cuts made, and then he missed the cut of the Players. We don't care about. We've mentioned that many times on this pod. We don't care about the Players Championship. We take it out of our model because he was obviously on the wrong side of the draw. And then he missed the cut of the Masters, which is no shame in that. He's never played the Masters before. We know how hard that place is. He then goes to the RBC Heritage a week later, comes 3rd. I love him. He's going to be probably my highest owned player this week within my lineups. And I might even have a lineup where I captain him, Mark. You'll love that.
I like Cameron Young. I like him this week.
I am certainly betting him this week. I'll tell you that now. I think he's going to win soon. And I think it could be this week. And yeah, he's number 1 in my model. He's my favourite play this week.
What I like about him, just quickly, Jack, is that in his very short career, he's done well at different types of courses.
Yep.
He's not like a one-course sort of horse, as it were. And he's actually, in this case, he's 2nd in my course suitability model. So he actually is my favourite play there, but I knew he was your favourite play, Jack. So I didn't want to just jump in there and stuff. I love his enthusiasm for Cameron Young. I think you're probably more enthusiastic about him than his mum.
I just before we do, I say I do like Cameron Young's my favourite player. I do like Brian Hartman as well. He sets up quite well. He's been playing pretty well recently, making a lot. Again, we're talking about people that are making cuts. Mind you, he does sort of looking at it now. He goes on that run, doesn't he? Makes a cut, misses a cut, makes a cut, misses a cut. So if we're going on that run, he's due to miss a cut this week. So maybe avoid Brian Hartman, but he is 12th. He is 12th in my model. 11th off the tee over the last 24 rounds. He's green everywhere pretty much. So yeah, I don't mind Brian Hartman either. Yeah, but all about Cameron Young.
I'm going to throw a couple of numbers out there for you. It might surprise you, but in the last 12 rounds, this golfer is ranked third off the tee. He's ranked sixth in fairways gained. He is ranked eighth in par 4 scoring, 450 yards to 500 yards. And he's ranked fourth in greens in regulations gained. And that man is Doug Gim, who somehow finds himself at number 2 on my model this week. And I've looked at the numbers there and I am shocked because he's had, I mean, of late, he finished 33rd in Mexico, 35 at the Heritage. He was 6th at the Players. Prior to that, I mean, he missed the cut at Valero. He had a few missed cuts consecutively from Genesis through to Arnold Palmer. He is super inconsistent with the putter, but there's a lot of green across the board, which is what I like to see in recent events, especially on his approach. His tee to green is fantastic. So Doug Gim finds himself second in my model, which is absolute turn up for the books this week. I don't know where that has come from, but I can't ignore it. And there's the key stats I'm looking at. He's ticking boxes on them. Granted, it is only over the last 12 rounds.
I'm not going there.
He's 12th in my model as well, Nick. So you're not completely.
No, obviously not going completely balmy. Clearly,
he's 19th in my model.
There you go.
So, yeah. I just briefly mentioned Mr. Iron Head Cover himself, Aaron Wright, who come 24th last week at the Mexico Open, played quite well there. This course actually might set up well for him because you're going to have a lot on the majority of these holes. You're going to have a long second shot in and he's a very, very good iron player, Aaron Wright, and that's why he comes 6th at the Farmers Insurance Open. A lot of the second shots there are sort of over 170 yards, so you've got to be very good and accurate with your iron, and he was there. Same with Mexico last week. You could see something similar here this week. I would certainly have a few shares of him as well this week, Aaron Wright, and I'm probably going to bet him to make the cut.
Yeah, he's got a good high percentage for his greens in regulation. He's practically at 70% on that, which does correlate well to this course, greens in regulations. So, yeah, do like Aaron Wright there as well, despite his head covers. Keith Mitchell, Matt Jones this week. Not for me. Joel Diamond, CT Pan, Sepp Straker, Matt Neesmith, Lanto Griffin, Troy Merritt, and Chiesko Molinari. Bottom of page 2, Jack.
Well, what a FanTeam doing to me here, because there's more guys within the top 10 in my model here. I've got Keith Mitchell, who's 6th in my model. He's 3rd off the tee. I think the only thing with him, did he miss the cut, if I'm correct, at the Heritage? Oh, no. Yeah, no, he didn't play the Heritage. So Keith Mitchell's 13th at the Players Championship. That's why I haven't really got a lot of stats on him, so I've got that out of the model. But he's 9th at the Honda there. Yeah, I say Keith Mitchell's 6th within my model. Sepp Straker ranks highly. He's 9th within my model. He's 7th in this field over the last 24 rounds on strokes gained putting, so you like to see that.
9 out of 10 cuts made as well this year for Sepp Straker.
Yeah, another one I like there. And CT Pan's the other one. I think I'll probably nick Mark's there. I know Mark likes a bit of CT Pan, but he's actually 10th within my model. He's 8th in the last 24 rounds on strokes gained on the approach. You like to see that. And he's also 6th on bogey avoidance. So, yeah, I could build a team from this page, I think, and I'd be very happy.
Mark, pick up the scraps.
Well, actually, statistically speaking, I haven't really got anybody from this range here. Ooh. Just to give you an example, Jack, our models are so different. Who was it? Was it Mitchell you had? Where do you have him, 6th or 4th?
I've got him 6th in my model, yeah.
6th. He's 71st in mine. That gives you an idea of how different we all see this. It's such a statistically driven sport. It's fantastic that we see things so differently. If there was one I was picking, which kind of, and I'm sure you guys are the same, we don't 100% stick to your model and stuff. Some guys you're interested in, because of other factors. But Sepp Straker's just, he's a guy who can win for me. And I think at that price is really good value. And as when we always build up lineups, we always end up having to fill in the last space with somebody on this bottom of the second page. And I think that he's that kind of play there. Pretty safe play.
Any interest from either of you on Joel Darman?
Not really. He's not. I'm just trying to get him up. He's 59th within my model, so no, not for me.
Yeah, I've definitely gonna have some exposure to him.
Yeah, I only bring him up because he's 8th in my model, and he has had some fairly impressive finishes this year. Another one that is a little bit like that with his putting when you look at his strokes game. But yeah, again, if he's popping up at 8, I can't really ignore that.
I probably haven't forgiven him. I probably haven't forgiven him for that withdrawal at Corrales, to be honest.
Don't let
Jack's
recency bias cloud you there. Yeah. Don't let it do it, Jack.
That's not recency bias, it's just bitterness.
One thing
bitterness, Jack.
Strokes
number 1.
Seriously, don't put that into. Yeah, when you're building DFS teams, don't do stuff like that. It's a really bad process. But no, I don't actually have any interest in Joel Darman. It's not because of that reason. It's because he's ranked very low in my model.
I think because of the pricing, what's quite abundantly clear is, especially if we've mentioned some of these names from the bottom of page 1 and starting building lineups here, I think you can pretty much pack out. It would be interesting what teams we build at the end. You could have a really good underdog, I think, from the bottom of page 2 here, which I'm sure we'll come on to that as we build a very balanced lineup towards the end. We'll drop down to page 3, and then I think from beyond this point, fellas, I think we'll just touch on anyone who you like beyond this point.
So we all know you're going to like on page 4. So
no, not this week, not this week. purposely made sure he is not in this pool. He's actually 65th for me this week.
He's 7th in my model. He's 7th in my model.
Also, Nick, the social media chatter about you and him has finally died down.
It seems to have, yeah. It seems to have.
Jack is trying to, one man, trying to just stoke all the fire up again. Don't let him do it. Nick. Don't let him do it.
No, do you know, I saw it today and I was like, I'm not going to say much on that.
Don't say anything.
No, I've tried to keep the memory alive, Nick. All right.
Yeah, you're just trying to reignite the heel within once more.
Yeah. Please, I want to see heel Nick, full heel Nick.
That will be back because I've no doubt there'll come a point in time where Luke List will just weasel his way back into my lineups again. So, but not this week. Not this week. So, Brandon Wu, we have David Lipsky, we have Russell Knox, Adam Long, Brendan Steele, Alex Smalley, Dylan Fratelli, Ricky Fowler, who is popping up quite high in my model this week.
I am not going there.
And then Matthias Schwab. Ricky Fowler, the reason why he is popping up so high for me is he is quite balanced in what he's gaining, strokes gained basically across my metrics. The lowest is his approach, and he's 34th there. He's 14th off the tee, he's 26th fairways gained, 13th on his par 4s, 29th with his putter, 12th greens in regulation. So he's quite balanced across the board. I'm inclined to agree with you, Jack, but I mean, that's just based on the last 12 rounds of golf. Looking further back than that, I've no doubt would drop him right down on my model. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll have much exposure. That's one I think I'm just going to have to override the model on that one a little bit. But yeah, top of page 3, fellas. We'll start with you, Jack. Tell me about your picks on the top of page 3.
I actually don't like anyone at the top at all. So I'm just going to move down a little bit. Sorry, I don't, and I don't play Ricky Fowler. Just don't. Sorry, Nick. I think Alex Smalley,
I won't really be playing him myself.
I think Alex Smalley will be popular because of his sixth place finish last week. But you have to remember he had 2 missed cuts before that, and then he was second at the Corrales, and both the Corrales and Mexico Open are on that different grass type. I can't even remember what it's called now. Paspalum, that's it. They both are on that grass type, so he clearly has a love and affection for that sort of grass. I think he's going to be popular, but I'm going to probably avoid him. He doesn't really rank out well in my model. The only person that I really like on this page is Denny McCarthy, and again, doesn't particularly rank out well in my model. He's 58th within my model. He's sort of green across the board, very light green, but he is very good at putting, Denny McCarthy, and a consistent cut maker. He's missed one cut all year. Played 10 events, missed one cut, which was at the Phoenix Open. It's not going to be pretty. These are not standout finishes that he's getting, Denny McCarthy, but he's making cuts. And if you're going to have someone like that as an underdog, why not? You know, he's going to make the cut at the end of the day.
Mark, well, anyone from page 3?
Mark's I turn it upside down and love it now.
I do love Brandon Wu. He's had 5 top 33s in a row, including 2 top 5s. He's my highest ranked player in driving accuracy, which I think is one of the most important stats here, and he's 4th in my course suitability model. So for that sort of price, he seems a bargain. Russell Knox, surprise, surprise, is 9th in my model. He seems to always, come up well in stats. Yeah, friend of the show, and
2 missed cuts though.
Yeah, but I suspect if I was doing 12 round, like Nick is, it wouldn't show as high. But I've been generally working on 16, weirdly enough, not that much anymore. So yeah, those two, I do like those two on that page. I like you said, Nick, I don't think we'll have to have many down here. Also, I've got a player I like more than both of those on the next page. So I don't think I'll be playing many on this page.
Before we do move on and summarise the rest of our picks, I do quite like Anabad Lahiri as well. I've got him ranked 27th in my model, but his recent performance is 2nd at the Players, 13th at Valero, 15th at Mexico Open. When you actually just watch him, he's playing good golf, and his strokes gained off the tee consistently every single week in that category over the last 12 rounds. He's ranked 9th for me, and he's really good on his par 4 scoring as well. So there's definitely going to be a little bit of exposure there for me, I reckon.
Adam Long's worth a mention as well. He's 28th within my model. He's nothing flashy there, but made his last 3 cuts, 35th at the Valero, 12th at the Heritage, and 15th last week in Mexico. So I'd like to see that. He seems to have found a little bit of form. So yeah, he's worth a mention.
Yeah. I doubt we'll need to go this low down unless we're doing stars and scrubs, but is there anyone sort of page 4 and beyond that you just want to give a special mention to, guys, before we start building these lineups?
Martin Lid. Sorry. So Martin Lid's 15th within my model.
You said his name that quick then. I wasn't quite sure. It just was like a noise. And I was like, as Jack made a recommendation there, and then I thought, I know who that is. Yeah.
I think his internet blipped as he said it or something. It just came out as
No, so my laptop's telling me that I need to update my antivirus software, which has been telling me for about a year now. So yeah, it's good fun. Anyway, Martin Lid. So if you want to hack my laptop, you're more than welcome to.
I think we found the reason why your laptop is sometimes a little bit slower there, Jack.
Yeah. So Martin Lid is 15th within my model, 14th on strokes gained on approach in the last 24 rounds within this field. He's 21st in bogey avoidance. Come 29th. Last time we see him was at the Valero Texas Open, and he come 29th there. So obviously missed a cut of the Valspar and the Players Championship. I think the Valspar, from memory, was a really high cut mark, wasn't it? Wasn't it like 5 or 6 under or something stupid like that?
Yeah, it jumped up, didn't it?
From record, yeah. So I mean, there's just whatever with that, and we all know the feelings with the Players Championship. But so yeah, he started the season well, finished his last tournament well at the Valero Texas Open. Again ranks 50, he's 15th within my model this week, Martin Lid. So I do quite like him. Luke List is 7th in my model, but I'm not playing him. I don't care. He's 151st over the last 24 rounds in strokes gained putting. No thanks. I'm not going there. I don't care where he ranks in the model. Sometimes you have to look at it and just say, no, I'm not doing it. And I'm not going back there again, but I just thought I'd mention it. Just to roll Nick up, really.
I'm not going to bite. I'm going to move on to Mark and do the sensible thing.
So it's we're talking about a shorter course where being long off the tee is important and a lot of control. It's clearly Ryan Armour week. He's 7th in my model, is still at this price. He's top 20 in course suitability. He's in the top 5 in my driving accuracy as well. 13.8 million just seems for me like a great place to start and a lineup.
He's actually third in bogey avoidance over the last 24 rounds, Mark.
Yeah, he's there's so much good about him. There really is. It's I feel he's I genuinely think he's mispriced.
He actually comes out top in my model based on the stats I'm looking at. Which he shouldn't be, but again, because I've narrowed it down to the last 12 rounds, he's 3rd on fairways gained, he's 8th off the tee, he's 5th on greens in regulations, he's 8th in putting as well. That'll be bumping him up. So yeah, he's I was surprised at his name at number 1, but I was also surprised at his price, like you said, Mark. I thought he would have been priced a little bit more.
Yeah,
this is a really nice field this week. I've gone down to like page 8, and I'm still finding guys that I like.
Yeah, there's a few down here, to be fair, that I like. Brian Stewart on this page as well. Adams Fenson is another name that is ranked fairly high in my model. Ches Reevy is up there as well. I think if you're building Stars and Scrubs, this is a good week for Stars and Scrubs because you can normally when we build these Stars and Scrubs lineups, we go quite low and we're sort of like we're struggling. We're picking golfers that we don't necessarily want. Whereas I think you can go low enough down here where you can probably pack out your lineup with a couple of these guys at this budget, and you're not too bothered.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I think you could be in a situation where you're not going to spend all your money. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that's this is one of those weeks where that could be very viable.
Yeah.
If you want someone really, really cheap, Satoshi Kodaira down there on page 6, he's 13 million. I'm not even going to look where he is in my model at the minute, but he come 15th last week, played really well last week. We'll probably play a lot more events going forward, I think, as well. I think due to that top 20 finish last week, he'll get into a few more fields now. So, yeah, he's someone, I mean, a good underdog, really. He had a nice week last week. He's 61st with a model, so he's not popping anywhere. But, yeah, he had a nice week last week, and you could play a lot worse down there, put it that way. It's a very nice price.
Yeah, I think we will start building the lineup, so it makes sense to kick off.
We did actually answer this question we've had from FF Scoped. He came 2nd last week in the mini main, I think it was. He said, evening all, when creating player pools from your model, do you set a limit on the maximum amount of players that you'll have exposure to? Good question.
Yeah, so for instance, when we talk about that chalk, so I'll start there, but I limited my exposure to John Rahm last week it was about 3% of my builds, and I maxed out the mini, for example. So yeah, that's what I would do and I will probably do the same with Rory this week. It might not be down at 3% because I don't think it's going to be as highly owned as John Rahm was, because I think this field's a little bit better than what we had last week. But I will probably cap my exposure of John Rahm, Rory McIlroy this week to about 5%, something like that within my builds.
Mark?
Yeah, for me, it kind of works out naturally to be the number of lineups I make. It ends up being about the half. So if I created, say, 50 lineups, I probably naturally end up with 25 players in my pool, just because of how I do my exposures. I go very low maximum exposures generally. So if I'm playing lots of lineups, I'll have like 20. It'll be between 20 and 30% will be the top players, and then as I go down, I try and get as much diversity as possible. That's not really a strategy; it's a risk management thing. So that's how I would do it. So for me, it's roughly half the amount of lineups I have is my player pool.
For me, I think a little bit similar to you, Jack. I think you do this as well, but I do tend to play with a smaller player pool. But I think for myself, that's more of a preference thing. Because I do multi-enter, but not to the extent where I probably max enter. In fact, I very rarely max enter, but I will do multi-lineups. But the second reason for my smaller player pool is I would rather pick my guys, as it were, and die on that hill than pick like 30, 40 golfers who I like and end up with the right guys, but just not in the right lineups. I'd rather chance that my smaller pool, I can get it right if I construct lineups with those players. Even if I slip up on one, I might have, say, 5 through the cut line, and I'm not kicking myself as much. Then I think there's nothing more frustrating than when you've got too many in your pool and you pick the right players, but your lineup construction just doesn't match the amount of entries that you're putting in. Yeah. That's it for me.
Yeah, no, sorry if I misread your question there as well. I sort of went about ownership and things like that. But yeah, in regards to the amount of players that I actually have within my player pool, at the minute it's set at 20 for this field. It varies from week to week for me, from the courses that we get on. But for this week, I've got it at 20, and I will review that probably Thursday morning, just before I 100% set my lineup. So I did change it last week for the Mexico Open. Don't always change it, but yeah, it's normally about 20. It's around about 20 to 25 players within my pool.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer to this. It all comes down to personal preference. Like me and Nick have very opposite ways of looking at it. I've tried to, reduce the risk because I'm generally very risk averse, and Nick takes a slightly riskier approach.
We all play DFS differently as well. But I will play it. I'll go heavily in on one player. Like for instance, so it will probably be Cameron Young this week. It'll be boom or bust. It will be boom or bust. But that's the way I play. I want to win the whole lot. I don't want to win a little amount. I want to win the whole lot, basically.
I think what is good about it as well, like you just said there, Jack, we all play it differently and play it what's comfortable for you. Don't feel like because you see multiple names on the board or you see Jack with his trends that you also need to do that. You can win this. You can win these contests with one bullet.
I can tell you now that
Jack can tell you that.
No, but all three of us. Yeah, but all three of us have taken down contests before. Single bullet, you can
one
win
entry.
Contest.
Yeah,
you can do.
Wasn't golf, but I've done it this week in a different sport. It can happen. So play it how you are comfortable playing. Basically, thought I'd get my win in there before we go and build I could see you smirking there, Matt. So yeah, we'll kick off, I think, naturally with Rory, because I think we did all like Rory and we're building stars and scrubs to kick us off. So Rory, and then do we want to throw in Connors or Fitzpatrick? They're both a similar price. So what's the consensus?
I think Bradley for this lineup personally.
Keegan Bradley, okay. We're obviously going to have to come down then. So I'm tempted to. Should Ryan Armour? Should we throw him in?
Yeah, let's throw him in.
Yeah, let's throw him in.
43.4 across 4.
How about we all like Stracker, didn't we?
Yeah.
At 15.2. What's that leave us left?
Which gives us 28.2.
I think we've gone too scrubsy here.
Maybe take out Stracker then. Head back to page 3. I know we didn't. This is the problem. None of us really liked a lot on this page.
No.
I mean, Denny McCarthy's going to be, I think he'll make the cut. But Adam Long was mentioned. Brandon Wu was mentioned, wasn't he? What about going back to page 4 and putting Martin Laird in?
Yeah, I don't mind that. Which gives us 29.2.
It's still not great, is it?
Not really.
What about going down to Kadira? Taking out Martin Laird to go down to Satoshi at 13.
Yeah, so that gives us a bit more to work with. So we've got 30.4.
Still not
which
great, is it?
it still doesn't give us too much. This is very stars and scrubs, isn't it? Literally like 2 stars and.
I quite like Brandon Wu there at the top of that page. I don't know. I don't know if that
So-
really
Yeah.
helps us.
Well, we could put Wu and we could round it out with Stracker, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I can see already that this is going to be my least favourite lineup of the
Maybe
ones.
we could get rid of Brandon Wu because we've still got 200k there. I don't know what if you take Brandon Wu out, what does that leave?
It leaves up to
Neesmith, Griffin,
Neesmith.
Merritt, Near. Yeah.
I think we leave him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it. That's the lineup. I think you captain Rory.
Yeah, I think you've got. But I suppose I think I probably would be tempted to throw that in twice and stick Keegan Bradley in as well. To be honest, just for a laugh, why not?
If you want to laugh, Captain Ryan Armour on that lineup, he wasn't the underdog.
I want a laugh, Matt, not a comedy show.
We did have that question the other day, actually. Can you captain the underdog as well? If you put the captain's armband on the underdog, who is Kadira currently, that would then move the underdog to Ryan Armour, just to let you know.
Yeah. But that's kind of pointless. You might as well just, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I try to get people, the captain and the underdog score the same way, so it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
It's
I think they just think they can get like double the points.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's like, it's a lot of effort to end up back where you started, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do something more balanced, Nick, because
Yeah,
that was
let's
awful.
go with
That was
balance.
painful.
I think
Can we
we
get
all
on
like
to page 2?
Yeah, I think we all like Seamus Power at the bottom of page 1, so I'm going to throw Power in there. Page 2,
Cameron Young.
Cameron Young. Let's get Cameron Young in there.
Captain. Stracker again.
Yeah,
Or
throw
CT
Stracker in
Pan.
there.
What about CT?
like-
What about Stracker and Pan?
I like Streelman on here as well. So
Well, Stracker and CT Pan gives us quite a bit to play with the last two.
that's decent.
Yeah,
Well, go with
very
Streelman
decent.
then. Go with Streelman.
We don't need
What's
to, I
that
don't
leave?
think, do we? I don't think we need to.
No, because we've got like 18.4 with 2,
Yeah.
so we could.
What about Fitzpatrick? What about Matthew Fitzpatrick on page 1?
Throw in Fitzpatrick.
And then what does that leave us on?
Leaves us with 16.6.
Put Streelman in. I like that lineup a lot.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
With Stracker as the
on the
underdog.
table as well.
Stracker and underdog is a great choice, isn't it? Also, I think you've got 3 potential captain options there as well.
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick, Power, and Young.
You could technically upgrade Power, couldn't you, if you wanted to on page 1? But
You've got $1 million left over here, so you could upgrade Pan as well if you wanted.
Yeah, if you was to do Power, you could get up to Casey. You could get to Homer, Mark.
Yeah,
You took Power
we
out.
both liked Tony,
yeah.
didn't we?
I think I would do that. I think I would take Power out and put Max Homer in.
You could even, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could just. We put Fitzpatrick in there. You could have. What does Keegan Bradley give us? 1.8, which means that we could get to. What would happen if we took Streelman out? What about that?
There's so many options you can go there with Stracker as the underdog.
Yeah. That's probably my favourite build tonight, all of those. I think that's where I'm going to start a lot of my builds, as I mentioned earlier.
I feel like I'm obliged now to multi-enter more than I wanted to this week because there's so many versions of this lineup which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's again. You could arguably put that in 5 times with 5 different captains and have Stracker as the underdog in every single one of them.
I think CT Pan is the weakest. For me, the weakest player in that lineup.
Yeah, agreed.
In which case, you could captain Stracker and have CT Pan coming in as your underdog.
Why would I make my weakest player like a 1.2 bonus?
No, but did you if you were throwing in different captains, if you felt that Strachan would go and win this, he's our underdog there. But if you captained him, then it's going to switch the underdog over to Pan. Just if you think that Strachan can go and win it, then
do that.
stick the armband on him.
Just captain Cameron Young, you'll be fine.
I think that's of the ones we built. I think that is definitely my favourite. Only 400k on the table, which you don't need to spend all your money. But I think if I was leaving 1 million on the table, I'd feel.
Could you move up from Pan to Doug Gim with that?
Oh, I don't like that.
You love Doug Gim, Nick.
I liked Doug Gim. Doug Gim was also high on. Doug Gim was also up there on your model. I think he was also up there on Jack's, but
I don't like that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Jack had him in top 20, didn't he?
Yeah.
Do you reckon we could do a quick Gary Woodland build?
Yes, we can.
Because we all like Woodland, didn't we? So let's do a quick Woodland.
So we've got Woodland at 18.3.
I think chucking Homer in this lineup as well. Woodland and Homer.
Woodland.
Can we get Power in this lineup as well? Do you think it's possible? Is that?
Yeah, should we try it? Let's try it.
Yes, put Power in. Because we know we can go down to a Ryan Armour or someone like that.
Yeah, I would go to a Ryan Armour now and see what that leaves. It leaves you, that would leave you with 34.1 million.
Wow. Okay, this is the best lineup now.
Yes. We've all got excited now.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well,
we've got options 2 hours of this.
We've got options here because we could go up to sort of like, I mean, what would Bradley leave us there? 14.7, which puts us back on page 3. So
yeah, I don't know. I would say, what if you went to Stracker again? I know if you went to Stracker again, it leaves you with 18.9 million. So if you go back on this page, so you can get up to Henley. We all like Henley.
Yeah, you can do this a few ways with these last two.
Was there absolutely no one on page 3 that we
just put Cameron Young in it? It'd be fine.
You're dying on that hill this week, aren't you, Jack?
Yes, I'm betting him, mate. Don't worry about
that. I've done a couple of bets myself.
Yeah, I don't mind that build. Again, I suppose there's another build what you could enter a few times and put different captains in as well.
That's probably my favourite build.
I mean, we could keep building lineups here, and the next one we build would be your favourite build. I feel like that's happened on each lineup so far.
It's going to be a good week, gentlemen.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, well, nobody's watching this by now, so these lineups are for us.
Yeah, it's just us just basically chunnering on building lineups for the next hour. No, that rounds us off nicely. So before we do shoot off, just remind the viewers one more time, Jack, about the Fantasy National offer.
Yeah, just head on over to fantasynational.com/FanTeam and you will get 20% off any of their packages. All the stats we've used tonight have come from there.
Good stuff. You can find us on Twitter at JackHumphreyKM, @_SMRF, and you can find myself at Nick of Wigan. Drivers for show and long irons for dough this week. We'll see you next week.